I brought out my donut ears since I get to make katakuri references in this chapter. Yay. Also, other thing that came up in not necessarily the process for this chapter, but just in recognition of something. So for the past 2 weeks or so, for the past 2 chapters, I've been trying to figure out who Maffy reminded me of, who, God's Knight Maffy reminded me of. And it was just like, for some people it was like, oh, she reminds them of, Killingham, and then we find out, no, they're not even from the same family. They could still technically be related, depending on how, Celestial Dragon family trees end up working. They could still technically be related. But I was trying to figure out what her design reminded me of, and I finally figured it out. Her design reminds me of Cruella de Vil. I know that has no implication in this chapter. She's not in this chapter. Not that I saw. But she reminds me of Cruella de Vil. With the black and the white hair, with the, her coat that's, fur up top, and then, she's got, it's a very stylish looking outfit that she has, and I actually really like her outfit. And I was just like, Cruella de Vil, that's who she effing reminds me of. And my Disney brain didn't make the connection fast enough to point that out initially with her. But I wanted to point that out here. So, now for chapter 1162, the God Valley Battle Royale. I would not do well in any type of battle royale type of game. I don't think I do well in those. But first we have the chapter cover, the cover story. So this one is the finale of Yamato's cover page story. And this one is, Dear Luffy Domo, it's another peaceful day in Wano. So possibly, I guess Yamato is sending a letter to Luffy. How Luffy is going to get the letter, I don't know. We also don't know quite where this lines up with the timeline of what's going on with the Straw Hats. Given the fact that Wano could take a little bit to travel around, so it could be happening during the same time that they're at Egghead, or it could line up during the same time that, possibly what's happening with, what's happening at, Elbath right now. But it's also a possibility that, this finished up fairly quickly after the Straw Hats left. We also don't know where this lands in comparison to when they got Vegapunk's message, because we don't see Yamato when they're getting the message. So, that's a debate thing. But here on the cover we have Yamato is scarfing down one of the, the shish kebab things, and Momonosuke is off in the background eating the same thing, or something very similar to it, where you see that they're in the flower capital, and everything seems peaceful. Yamato has, one of the, cloaks on that is, has the symbol of the, Kozuki family on it. And we also see off to the side, we see Kinemon and Ulti. And as I believe I pointed out, I don't think Kinemon and Ulti have interacted at all in the story up until this moment. Because Kinemon is not present during any of Luffy's fights with Ulti, or during, Nami or Usopp's, dealing with Ulti in page 1, or with, with Big Mom when Ulti is there. Kinemon is, up on the roof during most of that. Or is in, one of the treasure room where he's being, his wounds are being tended to. He doesn't end up interacting with Ulti at all. He kind of knows a little bit about page 1, because, page 1 attacked the flower capital and stuff like that, when they were trying to find, the Straw Hats in the bathhouse and everything. So Kinemon kind of knows about that, but he didn't interact with either one of them directly. So yeah, Kinemon's kind of giving Ulti this look like, okay, I know that you were part of Kaido's crew. I'm aware of that, and I can see now that you have you and your brother seem to have sworn your loyalty to young Master Yamato here. I'm just not sure if I trust you yet or not. So that's like the look on Kinemon's face. And we'll see down the line how this ends up playing out, if this ends up being something where, I mean, like, a lot of people are like, well, the next time that we see these guys together might be either when they're showing up to help with whatever final battle there is, or it might be another situation where we cut back to Wano and they're getting some type of information about something, and like we see Ulti in page 1 in the background. I know a lot of people thought the cover page series for this was going to end with us getting some type of a hint about Big Mom or Kaido for what could have happened to them. But that doesn't seem to be the case at the moment, so we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening there. But into the chapter, we pick up pretty much right where we left off with all of the chaos going on God Valley. And we have it that Rox and St. Garling are clashing in the northwest. Send backup, so we're seeing lots of these explosions and stuff like that. We know that at the end of the last chapter, Rayleigh managed to finally save Shocky, and that he sent Summers flying through however many walls in the town. We don't see Summers in this chapter. Hopefully he's off having to lick his wounds for a while. And, like, you know, we get the little map that shows where, like, you know, this is where the treasure is. This is where Rox and Garling are fighting. This is where the Roger pirates are. This is where the Rox pirates, the Navy, all of that stuff. Roger's current location, all of that stuff. So we're getting some of that information. And then it's just like, there's treasure, but you want to go the other way. So it's like, they're like, okay, we got to go find the treasure. And we're kind of going to see Roger kind of have his priorities in order here. And it's just like, okay, we've got the Rox crew behind us and the Navy to our front. So go ahead, Rayleigh, I'll handle things here. So he's sending Rayleigh off. And this is something that I do like, that I think I forgot to mention in the last chapter, is that Roger, while he still has feelings for Shocky, I'm pretty sure Roger has decided that, like, his friendship with Rayleigh and Rayleigh's genuine feelings for Shocky and Shocky's genuine feelings for Rayleigh are far more important to Roger than his own affection for Shocky. And he has, like, gone through and done the whole thing of, like introspective or something like that on himself and been like, okay, my best friends, best mates, partner in crime, partner in adventure, all this stuff, you know, whatever, however you want to refer to him and Rayleigh in that regard. My best friend, my brother in arms, co-captain, however you want to put it, he is truly in love with Shocky. Yes, I also love Shocky, but it's also possibly more of the infatuation level of love, because we see Rox kind of breaks out of that, because he was also kind of, you know, very much infatuated with Shocky when he first met her, when she set up her bar on Hachinosu. And then, after meeting Eris and going through all of that, he doesn't love Shocky anymore. They're still friends. You know, Rox and Shocky were still friends, but he fell in love with Eris. And I'm pretty sure that if Roger had met Rouge during the same time frame, he would have the same reaction. He's like, okay, no, I don't really love Shocky anymore. I still care about her and I still want her to be safe, but I am in love with Rouge. But, you know, so I think Roger has made that decision, and I think he already made the decision of, like, I'm still going to put at the front of being, you know, in love with Shocky. And he probably still is. But he's like, but Rayleigh's love for Shocky and Shocky's love for Rayleigh is far more important to me than my own feelings on this matter. They genuinely love each other. And if they genuinely both love each other, then I want them to be happy together. So he let Rayleigh have the moment of saving Shocky type of a thing there. You know, and like we see all the other ones are just like, we have to save Shocky. I'm here to save Shocky. No, I'm going to save her. All of that stuff. And I went over some of that in the last chapter, but I wanted to touch on that here a little bit. So Roger is telling Rayleigh to get Shocky out of here. And Rayleigh is taking that very seriously. We see him running and he's got Shocky in his arms. And we see her just like snuggled in with her arms around his neck, which I just love. We get to see a close-up on her face and she's just like, happy that she's got her Rayleigh. And it's just like, Shocky really got Shocky back. What? Man, I'm so jealous. Damn it, me too. Beat Rayleigh and take Shocky. Move the ship to the north southwest. On it. So we see several other members of the Roger Pirates. I think we see the kind of little Viking guy. I think his name is Millet Pine. And then we see one of the other guys who I just honestly don't remember his name. I'm sorry. We see them, and they're like, giving Rayleigh backup. At this point in time, I'm thinking the rest of the crew may have figured it out by now, that Rayleigh and Shocky were in love with each other, and, that type of thing. So they're like, hey, Rayleigh is still our, second in command, our first mate. Him and Shocky, we want them safe. We want them happy. We came here to rescue Shocky. Rayleigh got her. Let him get her out of here. Let her keep her safe. Let him keep her safe. Not that Shocky can't defend herself, but at the moment she's just like, I have my man, which is fair. I get it. And we have like Shiki has shown up, and he's like, you can't, dumbass. Shocky would get hurt. So they're like angry. Shiki is angry about them trying to get to Rayleigh to try to get to Shocky. And he's just like, you might hurt, Shocky. And we see that several of the other Rocks pirates are here. We see Gonzui and we see Whitebeard. And it's just like, focus on gathering treasure instead. Everything else is still up for grabs. So like, okay, Shocky's been taken. She seems happy with the situation she's in. Let's work on gathering up treasure and devil fruits. So we see that. And as I say, we see Rayleigh and Shocky running. And Shocky is just like, holding on to Rayleigh. To be fair, I don't blame the girl at all. And Rayleigh is just like, Shocky, there's something I've got to tell you. And she's like, don't say another word. I already know. I'm also just slightly having like Star Wars flashbacks because there's the moment in episode 5 where, Han is being cryogenically frozen, carbonized or whatever. And he's like, Leia says, I love you, and he's like, I know, and then it gets reflected back at them in episode 6, where she shoots one of the, stormtroopers or whatever that's after them, and he's like, I love you, and she's like, I know. So it's like, that's kind of a thing where it's just like, yeah, no need for words. So, we're going to cut to a scene that we've seen part of before. We're going to get, one of those essentially right here. We've kind of gotten a little bit of that throughout the course of this flashback. We get like different perspectives on stuff, like Dragon's perspective of when Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny were talking to the other, talking to a bunch of the other slaves and things like that. So we're getting some little bits here and there that we've seen before, like the arrival of some of the other crews. This one is Kuma and Ivankov's scene where they're getting the devil fruits. So this is prize store room 1. And it's like, it's crazy out there. And that's Kuma. And then Ivankov is like, we couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. And it was like, and we cut inside and we see them that they're holding the 2 devil fruits. Kuma has the pawpaw fruit, and Ivankov is holding the dragon fruit. And Kaido's devil fruit. And it's just like, is this? Yes, I don't know. Vitch is Vitch. So just eat up. I'm like, I don't know, you think logical deduction would be like, well, that one's shaped like a paw, so that one's probably the paw one. So by process of elimination, this one has to be the dragon one, would be like the answer there. But we lose out on Ivankov having the dragon fruit by Big Mom charging in, slamming Ivankov into the wall, and grabbing the Uenomi from Ivankov. And it's just like, phew, close one. And Kuma is just like, Eva-chan! And it's, it's like, and we see Lin reaching over to try to get the devil fruit from, the pawpaw fruit from Kuma. And it's like, Kuma, just don't think, just eat it. And just, you have to eat it and save them. And Big Mom's just angry about this because Kuma has eaten the devil fruit. And it's just like, if we get a single person off this island alive, we can call this a victory. And that's, Ivankov. And that's true, given the hell that this island is going through. That's a lot that this island is going through right now. It's very much a lot. And yeah, just getting one innocent life off of this island is worth it. And that's going to be one of the things that, like, the the Revolutionary Army kind of ends up being built on, is protecting, I mean, like, it's very much based on protecting the innocent, she says with donut ears on her head. So we cut back into part of the town area where we see some more of the Rocks pirates fighting against some of the other pirates. We see Stussy here, or Miss Barking, just firing her guns at someone. We see Silveraxe getting kicked in the face. I'll get back to that one in a second. We see Barbell off to the side fighting against some of the other these might be some members of the Roger Pirates or some Marines. I'm not sure. I can't exactly tell who some of them are fighting. Barring one. So Silveraxe is getting kicked in the face by someone. Kyo is getting kicked in the face. And the guy who is kicking Kyo in the face genuinely looks like Marco. And my thought was, okay, well, this can't be Marco, because Marco was like a kid at this point in time. I think he was like 7 or something. So Marco would not have been at God Valley trying to fight against Silveraxe at that point in time. So there's like this little fan theory that this is somehow Marco's father, because we know that Marco was an orphan that Whitebeard took in at one point in time. So there's a theory this is Marco's father or something, or it could just be this, and like someone's probably going to end up asking about this in an SBS, I'm sure of it. So we might get an answer that way, but we'll see. But we have the islands devolved into a pirate war zone. Should we pull back or try to capture them? So this is the Marines talking with each other. And now we're going to cut to where we have some of the other Marines talking, and we're going to get Garp here in a second. And it's just like, what are your orders? And we just see a bunch of them getting attacked. And then we have Marine group location. So this is where Garp is. And we see Garp running, and he's talking on the Den Mushi to someone, and it's Sengoku. And he's like, hey, Sengoku, did you know about this crap? And there is someone off to Garp's side. I don't know if this is Bogard or not. He kind of looks like Bogard, but we don't get a close enough look at him, so it may not be. And so this is, Garp is on the snail with Sengoku, and he's like explaining what's going on. He's like, you better not have known about this, dude. Because like, Sengoku, Garp, and Tsuru are best friends. And like, yeah, Garp and Roger are kind of like the frenemies. And even Garp and Rocks and Roger kind of fall into like the frenemies, a little more enemies, but still kind of, they like fighting each other type of a thing. And, so we see that. But here we have it that, like, Garp is, like, talking to Sengoku, and Sengoku is like, I think I recall someone alluding to it in a vague, rambling report once. The guy up and vanished from Navy life sometime afterwards. So Sengoku is like, yeah, I kind of guess I've heard about something like this before, but like it was kind of a rambling thing and a random report, and then like the guy who wrote it like just vanished. So obviously this is, some other Marine in the past, some other, low ranking Marine, or maybe even a captain or, officer level or something like that, saw one of these other events in, either 3 years prior or sometime before that, saw one of these events, was sickened by what happened here, I have a thought, give me a second. Was sickened by what happened, at one of these human hunting games, and put it into a report, tried to do something to like report that this type of a thing was happening. Definitely got found out by the upper rank Marines that knew about what was going on, along with whatever cipher pull organizations, probably CP9 or CP0, figured out, okay, this guy's figured it out, and he's trying to go against the system, so bye-bye Marine, sadly. So that's probably what happened, and, he just up and vanished. It's like, nope, he's gone, we don't know what happened to him. The little thought that I had was like, what if this was the same guy who was the admiral that Rox reportedly killed, that Zebak reportedly killed at the Reverie however many years ago, closer to the beginning of the flashback. And I'm like, what if it was that guy? But I'm like, if he'd made his way up to an admiral, it wouldn't just be someone alluding to it. It would have been an admiral alluding to it. So probably not. We see other, while they're talking, we see, all of these other, that are a bunch of the civilians from the island that have just been, shot and massacred and everything else like that, just lying on the ground. When the anime gets to this is just going to be some episodes that are just going to be very hard to watch. And so we get that. And then we have, Garp is like, this doesn't feel like a dream. They really did this. So he's just so angry about what's going on here. Fair. I don't know if Garp fully knew about what was going on here ahead of time. He knew that the Celestial Dragons were having a little field trip. I don't quite think he realized the ramifications as to what was going on. Now, Garp might have been okay if he was just told, oh, they're hunting criminals on the island. Horrible criminals from Impel Down, something like that. Garp may have been a little more, less adverse to that, but still. So, cutting to a different area, we cut to Rox's location. And it's just why aren't these guys dying? So we heard that Rox was having to fight against Garling and some of the other God's Knights. We're going to see some of the other forces that he's having to fight against at the moment as well. And Zebak is just okay, why are they not going down? They should go down. I have this really unique sword technique. It's like a cannon. Why aren't they going down? And we see he's going to have Eris over his shoulder, and then Eris is holding Teach. So they're running. Eris is Zebak, put me down. And he's just we've got no choice. We've got no choice but to run. And it's some of the others got caught up and transformed. And we see behind them, and they're running, and Rox has Eris over his shoulder. And, she's hanging onto his cloak and all that stuff too. She's looking behind him at what is coming behind them. And center place, we see Garling on his duck, I think is what it was. War duck, whatever it was. And then off to one of his sides, we see the dark-haired woman that we saw before, who's one of the other God's Knights. We see her. And then alongside them, we see at least 4, if not more, of the Reversi Demon characters. Now, in a second, these are going to be confirmed to be some of the other members of the Davy clan. So, being a Davy clan member does not make you immune to the Reversi technique, the Domi Reversi technique that Emu has. Does not make you immune to that. Sadly. Otherwise, that was going to be something where okay, Rox might be immune to it. Rox may still be immune to it, but we're going to find out if there's some other reason. So, at the very least, being a Davy clan member does not make you immune to it, and being a member of the Will of D does not seem to make you immune to this, because if they're members of Rox's family, of the Davy D clan, then they would still hold that same title, and that same blood, or that same mark, so they're not immune to it. So, sorry, other members of the Will of D who are still around, you're not immune to this, or at least not by those standards, you're not. And she's like, wait, Zebak, what happened? Is it an ability? So she's just trying to figure out why they got changed. And we have, I think it's either Rox or Eris that's shouting back. And, we're going to get kind of, who 2 of these people are that got Domi Reversi'd. And it's Rox's dad and grandmother. Which just makes this hurt even more. And it's just Pops, Granny, what in the world? And we see 2 of these ones, they're Domi Reversi'd, as I said. So they've got, the horns, and they've got, the, fangs and everything. The sharp tusks and everything. And earlier, when we saw the Davy clan members up on stage, we saw one of them that was wearing kind of a straw hat. This is one of the ones that we saw wearing the straw hat. This is Rox's father, I assume. And we see his grandmother. And that would just be so hard, because now it's like, even though because it's the same thing as like seeing, or very similar to seeing, with Dorian Bragi and the other giants being Domi Reversied at Elbath. It's this very similar thing where you're just like, no, that's not right. They're being, it's against their will. They're being forced to do this. This is not the way they are, all of that stuff. So it's a very similar type of a thing. And from what we kind of see about these two is that, like, they may have been more on the peaceful side of things. Like, yeah, okay, Rox went out and started doing a bunch of this stuff, but these ones, his mother and his dad and his grandma kind of stayed on the island, just stayed on God Valley and tried to, stay, quiet. And that's why Rox changed his name to Rox instead of Davy, in order to try to protect them. And it's just like, what in the world? And we cut back and we see Gerling, and he is currently healing up. We see that he has a big, slash in one of his shoulders, and also through his head and through his hair, which is just funny. And that's crack, stitching itself back together. As him and the woman are riding toward where Rox are leading the little demon army. And you're just like, he sure is strong. It takes quite a long while to regenerate from his sword slashes. And this kind of goes along with what we kind of saw on Elbath with Scopper just slicing and dicing Summers. Big difference there. Slicing and dicing Summers. And it took Summers a little bit of time to be able to put himself back together. And so we get that. So it's like, there's something in the slashes, and a lot of us are okay, it has to be something hockey based in your attacks that is able to cause damage to the God's Knights or those who have the regenerative abilities. And we have the woman talking, and she's like, but now we know he's also part of the Davy clan. Finishing him will please the Great One. And it's just indeed, the interruption to our Trowny has turned out to be a blessing. So it's just okay, another thing to hunt. So Rox is still booking it with Eris on his back, and she's like, let me go, Zebek. Are you going to try to fight them off one-handed? And he's like, don't you get it, Eris? If anyone bearing the Davy name is caught, they'll go through so much suffering, that hell look tame. Yep, and she's like, I know that. And we get this little mini flashback where we see, Zebek's dad and his grandma, they're happy and everything. And it's just and it's Eris talking, and it's I am a full-fledged part of the Davy clan now. Everyone here was always so nice to me, even though I was a pirate. So we get this little bit of a backstory here for her, where at some point in time, she had been a pirate. Now, given that, Hachinosu was this, pirate island, and pirates would come and go to a degree, some going to go to Shaki's bar after she set it up there, other ones just there to try to see about maybe either working with Zebek or something else. And at some point in time, maybe she showed up on the island, caught, his attention. Maybe she was someone who he had tried to win at a Davy back fight, and it didn't work. Maybe she beat him in whatever type of game it was. Maybe it ended up being more of a game of something that wasn't to Rox's strength than it was to her strength, and she managed to defeat him. And, that type of a thing, and maybe that resulted in him starting to have feelings for her, or some variation of that. So there's some type of a thing there. I don't know if we're ever going to get the full backstory for how Rox and Eris met, but maybe we will. She's holding Teach this entire time. She's holding him and keeping him safe. And we see her, she just jumps off of his back and does a barrel roll, protecting Teach as she's doing so, and lands. And she's like, I fully understand the fate our clan faces, but put me down, and jumps, which is just funny. She's like, you're not listening to me. Jump. He's like, hey. She's like, if I was the kind of woman who just clung to you and couldn't protect a single child, you never would have fallen for me, right? And we see her smiling at Teach, or see her smiling while she's holding Teach, and she's looking at Rox, and it's just like, this is going to be essentially the last time that Rox is probably going to see his wife and child, considering that Rox does reportedly die at God Valley. But this is like the last time, to a degree, that these three are going to be shown together as a family, to a degree. She's like, you never would have fallen for me. It's like, if I couldn't even do that, then there wasn't anything about me that would have gotten your attention. And, like, we do, and, like, as people have been saying, she does look very similar to, like, the Robin-esque type face that Oda draws for a lot of the women. It's either Robin-esque or Nami-esque or some variation of that. I don't know what hair color. She's going to have at least light hair color, so maybe she'll end up with, like, blonde hair, or, I don't know, maybe blue hair, and then they'll come up with some type of Nojiko connection, I'm sure of it. But, I don't know. Maybe it'll be light green hair, I don't know. Or a Zoro connection. Not sure. Although, if she ended up with blue hair... No. I was going to say, there was also the theory going around that Rox was going to possibly be Buggy's dad, too. And given the fact that Buggy would be a year old when all of this is happening, because he's the same age as Shanks, he would be the same like little baby Shanks is, he would be little baby Buggy. There was the whole thought that maybe Rox is going to be his dad, too. And it's just like, well, if he was, and if he was here, Eris would be having to have both Teach with her and little Buggy, so probably not. And she's like, if I was just some sniveling little woman that needed your protection all the time, you wouldn't have fallen for me. And he shouts at her, don't be an idiot. And he's like angry about her, and it's like, she's not necessarily wrong about that, but he's also like, don't be an idiot. You can't do anything against them. Like, maybe she's not weak per se, but he's probably having to put a lot of effort into even vaguely wounding Garling and such during these fights. During these clashes, he's putting a lot of energy into that, and, like, she has to protect Teach. She also has to, she doesn't seem to have any weapon on her. We don't see her have any type of a devil fruit. There was a theory, or still kind of is, a theory that maybe she had the Yami Yami no Mi, and that's why Blackbeard kind of knows what it can do, and why he goes after it later in life, because it had been his mother's devil fruit. But if she had that, wouldn't she have been trying to use it to, like, defend herself and Teach and try to find a way to, like, escape or something off of God Valley when the Marines showed up, when there had been something that happened there? She may just not have any devil fruit ability. She's not 100% defenseless, but, no. And she's like, if it looks like they're about to get me, then I'll teach and off myself, essentially, is what she's saying. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess given the circumstances of being just tortured to no end by the world government, given the Davy Clan connection and the connection to Xebec and everything, probably that might be the better answer, given the circumstances. So we have her do that declaration, and Rox is just like he does not like that idea, but he understands where she's coming from. She's like, I would do that before I let our child suffer this way. Suffer the way that you expect will happen. And she's like, we're surviving this by splitting up. Let's meet on Lelucia, Xebec. So now we get Lelucia brought into the fray. Other people are probably going to be mentioning this, but I'm going to point it out as well. Obviously, Lelucia is one of the other kingdoms that has been wiped off the map by, Uranus in the sky, by the sky weapon, by the Mother Flame, all of that. The most recent one that caused a lot of problems and was causing the earthquakes and flooding and storms and stuff like that at various places around the world. We also know that Lulusia, for a little while at the very least, was under the tyrannical rule of, you know, the king and of their vampire king and his daughter. So we don't know that much else about the backstory of Lulusia. The other bit that we do get for part of the backstory of Lulusia is during Ace's cover page story. And during Ace's cover page story, when he's looking for Blackbeard, he ends up on Lulusia, and he ends up coming across a guy who looks like Blackbeard, and is called Dr. Blackbeard, Dr. Kurotsuro. And he is the guy who, like, you know, Ace thinks it's Blackbeard, beats him up, and then because of that, Ace gets tossed into the river, floats down the river, and ends up meeting Moda. So, I guess there's the possibility. I mean, like, Rox and Teach look very much alike. There's a very obvious connection there. Some people might do the thing of like, well, maybe that Blackbeard, Dr. Blackbeard or whatever that was on Lulusia, maybe that was actually like Teach's uncle. Like maybe he's Eris's brother or something, or maybe a cousin of Teach via, you know, Eris's family. But, you know, he looks a little bit like Blackbeard, but not fully. You know, he's got like the curly black hair, the curly, you know, little curly beard and everything like that. To be fair, given the circumstances of what happened to Lulusia, he may not be around anymore, to be fair. But yeah, so there's that thought there that, like, you know, gotta go to Lulusia. So they're running off, and Rox is standing his ground, and Garling and such have caught up, and it's just like, finally ditched your wife and kid, huh? Now then, what'll the next attack be? And you know, we have Zebek there, and he's standing his ground, and he's like, why am I the one being saved here? And he's like, why am I the one being saved here? Because Eris and Teach are running off. And, you know, Rox is going to stand his ground, raises a sword, and just slashes it. And Garling, assumedly, is going to get the brunt of this attack. And he's like, afraid I can't let you go any further. And he slices, you know, Rox slices his way through this. We see like a giant slash mark in the island form for the way that like Teach's power, or Rox's slashes seem to work. And it's just like, now bring it on, you monsters. So from there we see Eris running, and she's still holding Teach. And you know, she's like, Zebek, because like she's very worried about her husband. She's like putting up a brave front because she'd rather him fight and not worry about them, you know, type of a thing. Because she knows he can't quite defend himself if he's having to also, you know, keep her and Teach safe. So they're running. And like Teach is looking back. Teach is like 2 years old at this point in time. And, you know, I think that's correct. He's like 2.5-ish, give or take, when in the year this is happening in comparison. And it's, you know, this would be a horrible thing to watch. And I don't know exactly when you start forming memories, but if we're going by, like, you know, inside out logic, he's definitely forming core memories at the moment with all this crap going on. And to a degree, given what we're seeing here, it makes sense for why Teach would have gone down the path that he went on, but it also depends on like what happens to him between this moment here, all the stuff that's happening on God Valley, this very formative time frame in his life, and what happens to him between then and when he finally joins Whitebeard's crew 27-ish years ago, during the time frame during the flashback, when we see Teach join. So there's that whole question there of like what happens to him during that time frame. Him and his mother may end up making it out of here alive, but if he's an orphan, then Eris clearly doesn't survive later on. She doesn't live, you know, ends up living a whole lot longer. A few more years, about another, you know, 10 years, give or take. but we don't know exactly. And also, we don't know what island Whitebeard was on when when Teach showed up and asked to join his crew. We don't know what island that was. That may very well have been Lelucia at that point in time, but we're not sure. So they're running, and as I pointed out in it was either the last chapter or the chapter before that, there's very strong parallels being drawn here between Teach and his backstory and Kanjuro/Orochi and their backstories as Kurozumis that were hunted in Wano. And in this case, it's Davy clan members, Will of Dean members, who are being hunted on God Valley in this literal human hunting thing. So there's, very similar things there. So we cut to outside storeroom 1. Mama, this'll do. So we see Big Mom holding up the Uanomi, the Kaido's devil fruit, and she's like, a model of the fishy fruit. I'll feed it to Katakuri. My future crew's gonna be overwhelmingly powerful. Answer: no, you can't, and yes, it will. So, just going into some details here for timeline-wise. First of all, Katakuri already has a devil fruit at this point in time. He is 10 years old, and according to notes from Oda, Katakuri ate his devil fruit, the Mochi Mochi no Mi, when he was 5. Katakuri is now 10, so that was 5 years ago. So either this is just a continuity error, and Oda might do something where, like, someone asks about this. It's like, oh, well, you said that Katakuri ate his devil fruit when he was 5 in, like, one of the, data books or something like that. And then you have the Big Moms talking about, like, giving him this devil fruit. So does she not know about the devil fruit? Or is that just, like, a thing that happened where she just, it was like, it would be very hard to forget that your kid ate a devil fruit. Particularly with the whole thing of, like, oh, if you eat 2 devil fruits, you'll explode. And so the thought, there's the either or here of, like, either it's just a continuity error, and Oda will be like, yeah, no, it was supposed to be, Katakuri didn't have his devil fruit yet, and that came later. Or it's Katakuri has eaten his devil fruit at this point in time, and he just doesn't, like, Big Mom doesn't know about that because she hasn't really spent as much time around her kids as she should. And she does later, once they're more settled on, like, Totland and Whole Cake Island. She doesn't spend as much time around them. Also, for a side note here, this is the same year that Brûlé gets wounded, where she gets, like, the scar across her face because she's trying to stand up for Katakuri. And Katakuri then makes his vow and covers his mouth, and that he will no longer be, he'll never lose again type of thing. So it's that same year that this happens. That these 2 incidents happen. Now, with more context, we kind of can assume that, like, those flashbacks might be the kids, Charlotte children growing up on Hachinosu. And what might happen is, like, we know that Lin obviously makes it out of, God Valley, and she ends up making her way back to Hachinosu, probably gets her kids, and is just like, well, screw this place, and goes and ends up, going and starting to build up Totland more. Her and Stoyson head off and start building up Totland more. Maybe some of the pirates go with her, but she does that. And she just may not know that Katakuri ate a devil fruit yet. Given how little attention she tends to pay to her children, that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if that was the case. Or she just straight up was going to feed Katakuri 2 devil fruits and hope that her child would get both donut and dragon powers. Mochi and dragon powers. That would be fun, I guess. To be fair, then you can't do the parallel between Luffy and Katakuri with, like, Katakuri's kind of devil fruit being very similar to Luffy's, and the anything you can do, I can do better setup that they kind of had going there for a while during their match and during their battle in the Mirror World. So there's that. And so we have, like, Big Mom holding up the devil fruit, and she's like, this is going to work great. Cue Kaido comes out of nowhere, back, Hasaikai's her with his Kanabo, bam, right up on the head. Devil fruit gets tossed into the air. Kaido jumps up and bites it, swallows it down, and Big Mom's just growling at him. And Kaido gets the devil fruit, and he's like, and just like smiling at her. And we get this big explosion, whether this is an explosion caused by Big Mom, whether this is an explosion caused by Kaido transforming for the first time, not sure. She's like, screw you, Kaido! So this kind of does a little bit of a thing where we were under the impression, oh, I see what happened. Big Mom, I think what happened is she got hit, she has dropped the devil fruit, she reacts, Napoleon gets knocked off of her head, because we see that her hat gets knocked off. I don't know if that means that now something's exploding that way or whatever. Now, during Wano, when they're on the roof and we have Kaido and Big Mom talking, we get the implication that Big Mom saves Kaido's life by giving him the devil fruit. That doesn't quite seem to be the case here. Kaido literally straight up just stole the devil fruit from her, whacked her upside the head, and then took the devil fruit out of midair. Good catch on his part, though. I have a hard time even trying to catch popcorn out of midair or grapes. He caught a whole effing fruit. Good job on his part. And so we see that. So assumedly there's possibly going to be something else here where there's like this life debt that Big Mom is able to claim that Kaido owes her when she's on her way to Wano after Topland and when they're on the roof, reminding him of this life debt. So we're maybe gonna see something here of that a little bit later in the story. But also Kaido's not explaining himself here. He's just like shows up, whack, runs off, flies off, dragons off, whatever. And Big Mom's just angry about this. Fair. Dragon devil fruit is cool. That would be one of the ones where I'd be like, you know what? As much as I love swimming, being an effing giant effing dragon and able to fly and all that stuff, you have my attention. I'm listening. Is like where my head would go with that. So we cut to two parallel panels where we have Dragon running and he's holding which twin we assume is Shanks. And Shanks is now finally crying. And this is probably more to do with the fact that Shanks got bonked on the head last chapter. And like Dragon's like, I won't let you die. And he's like running and running and running. And we see Dragon is still injured. And we see Eris running. And she's of course holding Teach. And she's like, I won't let you die, Teach. And they're both running, possibly in opposite directions. Because I don't think we got an answer as to where Dragon was specifically earlier on. Cutting back to one of the main stage area, behind the game stage, prize room 2. I found the treasure! We see like the stage and like the town area. It's just all engulfed in flames. It's just like, I found the treasure! Woo! I've never seen, and we see like Scopper and a bunch of the other members of the Roger Pirates, and they're like, I've never seen this much loot before. Woohoo! There's devil fruits too! Load it up! Load it all up! Again, this calls back to the whole fact of like, when we get Buggy and Shanks' flashback, when Buggy gets his devil fruit and he's like playing up on the crew that they don't believe in devil fruits, either that is just literally now the crew just straight up messing with Buggy because they knew what devil fruits was. They knew what devil fruits were. They had dealt with so many other people who had had devil fruits already in the before. And during this moment and all that stuff. So it's not like the crew wouldn't have known what devil fruits were, all of that type of stuff by the time they were like traveling around the world. So, it's just kind of this whole thing of like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here. So it's just like, load it all up. So they're just cheering. Gonzui shows up, tries to punch Scopper, and it's just like, we let the Roger Pirates get away with all this. So, they're just kind of fighting there. We see several of the Marines show up, and it's just like, drive the pirates off the island! And we see, one of the Marines looks familiar. He kind of looks like, I don't know, I was going to say a lot of people compare him to, like, Hound, or, not Cancer, but, it's another Marine that we've seen in the past, and I guess, but it wouldn't be the same guy, because this is 38 years ago, so maybe not. So then we see Garp, and it's just like, nothing makes sense here, even justice. And We see several of the slaves are just like, oh, the world government's navy, please let us go. And they're just like begging, and it's just like, God Valley is not a member nation as such. So it's like they have no obligation to try to help them. Bombard them with cannon fire, which is just horrible. And we cut to, now we're going to see Saturn. But first we have a little tiny flashback that lines up for when Kuma and Saturn would have interacted, when Kuma essentially does the whole I have no idea who you are moment with Saturn. And he's just like, even if I only manage one more, I'm going to save as many of these people as I can. And that was, Kuma standing up to Saturn there. And Saturn's like sitting up on this, one of the rocks, and like looking down at all of the crap that's going on down on God Valley. And it's just like, Saturn, is Rox dead? And this is, Emu's voice coming in, telepathically to Saturn. And it's just like, well, things have continued to unfold outside of our expectations. In fact, and we see, so we cut away and we kind of see his Saturn is still talking, he's still narrating. But we see like several of the pirates. One of them is, I'm pretty sure it's Whitebeard. And we see like what is supposed to be like the silhouette of Kaido's dragon forms, in the sky. And it's just like, all this intense destruction. I believe if it continues, we will risk something else being unleashed. And it's just like, what is that? A dragon? And then we have Emu going, that must not be permitted. And so we cut to where we have Kuma, now with the pawpaw fruit powers, and with a bunch of the other slaves that they are now trying to, free. So we see like this, guy and possibly his wife or his daughter. We see like an older guy and his daughter and stuff like that. And it's just like, thank you. It's like, Kuma-kun, and he's just like, you don't need to thank me. We have to hurry. And so he's like, using his powers to pop them away. And my thought about this is like, okay, I get that it's like under stress and everything, under duress, that he's learning how to use this ability here. But my thought is that Kuma is essentially like, okay, I've been given this power and it somehow does allow me to like teleport people to places, essentially. So now I have these paws, and if I tap someone with the paws, it will send them somewhere. And he's probably thinking in his head, I want to send these people to a safe place. And from the rules that we learned about the pawpaw fruit is that Kuma can send people to places that he has been in the past. And for Kuma, up to this point, there's only like 2 other confirmed locations that we know that they've been. And that would have been Sorbet Kingdom, or that would have been Marie Joie, where him and his parents were slaves. Marie Joie is definitely not safe, obviously. Sorbet Kingdom, however, would possibly qualify as a safe place at this point in time. This may have been under the same time that Bulldog was King Bulldog, where he was in charge of, Sorbet Kingdom at that point in time already, as opposed to Bakori, since I don't remember if we quite get a full answer as to when Bakori fully got in charge, but this would have been 38 years ago, and all of that stuff. And, like, even then, like, we have, like, the old people say, well, even when, like, Bulldog was in charge, we may have been poor, but we were happy type of a thing. We were poor, but we had what we needed, and we were happy type of thing. So Kuma's probably like, somewhere safe. Send these people somewhere safe. Now, that would send them to Sorbet. Give Sorbet some new population, and then they can try to sail off or find somewhere else that they can go from there. The other thought would be, can he send them to a place that this person has been before? Like, if they're not from God Valley, then he might be able to send them to, like, wherever they originally were from before they got captured as slaves. So, that's a debate. They're like, thank you, Kuma, thank you. And they're just like, anywhere but here would be heaven. And he's like, popping them away. So we hear the pop, 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 poof, poof, poof. And it's just like, I had given up on surviving this. Thank you. So pop, pop, pop. Thank you. Pop, pop, pop. Thank you. Pop, pop, pop. And like we see Kuma smiling and we see Jenny crying her eyes out, which is adorable. I think we saw Ivankov to just kind of off to the side, just smiling, because it's just like, oh, we're doing that. We're saving these people, and that's what we wanted to try to do. And, even if we're just saving one life, that's a victory, and they end up saving, 500 plus lives. I actually got to bring up Kuma. So I've been going to Bible study with my dad a bit more, because, it's an activity that we can do together. And I actually brought up One Piece, and I brought up Kuma's backstory in Bible study. And I kind of did a rough overview of just like, he gets, he's made a slave, and then he ends up getting free, and then it's just like good thing, bad thing, good thing, bad thing, good thing, bad, all that type of stuff, like a rough overview of it. And one of the other guys, who is just one of the older guys in the church that has known me for most of my life, he's like, has there been a comparison between Kuma and Job? And for anyone who's not familiar with it, Job in the Bible is, it's the book of Job in the Old Testament. And Job is this guy who God puts, like, Job had a really good life, and he was really devoted to God, really good person, all of that type of stuff that was, like, considered a good person by God. It was, like, one of God's favorite humans. Just go watch the episode of Good Omens, and you'll get a good answer to that one. Also, you get to see David Tennant technically turn his own stepson into a newt, into a salamander, which is just funny. If you don't understand that reference, just go look it up. It's hilarious. But we have, Job goes through, he had a great life, and then God makes a deal with Satan that is just like, oh yeah, if you can do you can do whatever you want to Job as long as you don't actually kill him, and we'll test his faith. And, like, Job's house burns down. He's, riddled with, sores and, essentially leprosy and stuff like that. His children all die. His livestock are all dead. All of this other stuff happens. It's like everything is gone. And yet Job refuses to get angry at God. He's like, no, I will not get angry at God. And then he's, paid back with, like, tenfold of whatever it was that he lost for his faith. And it's just like, yeah, Kuma is kind of a Job-like character. And I made the comment of, like, we're not exactly sure what the end of his story is going to be yet, because we haven't seen the end of the story yet, but, like, it was a lot so far. But it was talking about, like, Kuma's faith and stuff like that. And, so one of the things that they've actually told me in Bible study is they like that I bring, like, a pop culture perspective to things when we're talking about stuff. So I use that to my advantage. So, they're all getting popped away from God Valley, poofed away from God Valley. And then we get, like, an outside shot of God Valley with all of this, the black lightning coming in that is very much associated with, the Gorosei, or with Emu, this black lightning coming in. And we see Roger, Garp, and Rox all have this, oh, that's not good type of a realization as they're sensing this power showing up. And it's just like, boss, it's Rox and the others. Hold on, this probably isn't the time for that. So it's like, they're getting ready to fight them. It's just like, nope, we're gonna go. There's something else going on here that's not good. And we cut to where we have Rox, and he's just standing there. Flames engulfing around him. We see several other bodies all over the ground, probably the bodies of the Davy Clan members that he had to end in order to, like, free them from this horrible thing, this horrible dummy reversi that they got put through. And, like, that would just be a horrible thing to have to do that to your own grandmother and your own father type of a thing. And, like, that would just be horrible. And we also see Garling is on the ground, beaten and bloody, and just like, damn it. And we hear Rox, and it's just like, how dare you go after my family? If you want me dead, I'll take you down first. And he's just, like, standing there with the sword stabbed into the ground, like, do you want to test me some more? I'll keep fighting. And then we get the final page of the chapter, double page spread. And we have Rox is there, Whitebeard has shown up, and Kaido has shown up. Kaido in his dragon form. And Rox is just like, there's nothing much to gain here, Still gonna help? And Whitebeard's like, don't sweat it. I owe you since I'm always drinking on your tab, which just goes along with the whole thing with where we know that Whitebeard would always like mooch off of others to like pay his tab when they were at bars or drink other people's, alcohol and stuff like that, other people's liquor, because he would save up his money to send back to Sphinx Island so they could be able to buy supplies and everything else like that. So we kind of see that's like slightly here, but it's also just like Whitebeard's kind of like, you know what, Rox? Maybe he saw what happened. He heard Rox talk about his family. Maybe he figured out something that was going on here. And I do kind of have this what-if scenario that would be like, what if Rox had felt that he could trust enough of his crew members, not all of them, but some of them, like maybe Whitebeard, possibly not Big Mom, but like Whitebeard, maybe Kaido, given what we're going to see here, I'm not sure, but like at least Whitebeard, if Rox had been able to tell Whitebeard about his family, Whitebeard would have understood. Big Mom may not have fully understood. Kaido, maybe not. I don't know about the other members of the Rocks Pirates. I don't know, maybe some of them would have, some of them, wouldn't. Gloriosa might have understood. Stussy, probably not, but, you get the idea there. So, we go through that, and and then we have Kaido showing up, and he's just like, hey, you two, check this out. Woro, I finally got an ability. And he is like flying down, looking down on them, which is just funny. And he's like, look at what I can do. I'm a dragon. Is essentially what's going on here. It's the younger brothers showing up to the older brothers that are like, the older brothers who are like pro football players or like pro wrestlers. And the brother's like, I flipped someone in practice in like middle school. It's like, what's going on here? He's like running up like, flying up, I'm a dragon, look at me! Which is fair, I'd be doing the same thing if I had that ability too. I'd be like, screw wherever the hell else is going on, I'm a dragon! Type of thing. He's like, I finally got an ability. And Rox is like, good on you, at least someone's having a fun time. It's like, yeah, sure, I can see that. Yes, very nice, Kaido. Good for you. Where's Linlin? And then Whitebeard is just like, that's great and all, but mind if I ask, what the hell are we up against? So I'm looking at this panel with like all three of these guys, and I love it. And it's like, Whitebeard is staying loyal to his captain to the end. Kaido is also kind of doing that. He's like, okay, yeah, I have an ability, and I'm thinking what happened, and a lot of people are like, I think the reason Kaido went after Big Mom to get the Devil Fruit, A, for his own use, so he could turn into an effing dragon, which is fair, but also allowing Kaido to then go and try to be able to help back up Rox. He's like, my captain's in trouble. I'm going to go do what I can to try to help my captain. So that's kind of the thought there. And the other thought that I had is like, first I had what I was like, thinking about this in retrospect, I'm like, you know what? This is making me think of something. And I thought of like those commercials where it's just like, Kaido's like, look what I can do. And like I was thinking of the commercials of like, I'm a big kid now. And I'm like, no, not quite. And then I had the thought of, okay, there's the Prince of Egypt movie, and they have the song Playing with the Big Boys now, which is sung by the two priests to Moses when he shows back up after he's been away for however many years. And he shows back up, and they have this great performance where they're like going through all of the gods and stuff like that. And they have their snakes trying to defeat Moses' snake, and they get, the two snakes get beaten, but, it's like you're playing with the big boys now. And like Kaido is kind of at the moment where he's like, okay, I have a devil fruit. I can try to help. And he's like playing with the big boys now. It's like, that's good luck there. Not going to help you much in a moment, but good luck. And it's just like, and Whitebeard's like, so what are we even up against? And we see something. We cut away and we see, this is probably coming near them, or at least that they're sensing. We see that Saturn, in his spider form, has been possessed by Imu, which just kind of looks interesting. And it's just like, Saint Saturn, what is this transformation? Monster! And they're just like, everybody's just like running away. Some of the Marines are running away, a bunch of the pirates are running away, just everyone's running away from him. Fair. No argument here. Just run. It's not going to help you much, but run. And then we get the last 4 panels of the chapter. And we have Garp going, maybe this is a dream after all. What's up with this island? And Roger's like, it's been one adventure. Been one adventurous twist after another today. And then we have Rox like, what is it, you ask? If I had to say, I'd say it's the world. And, the last panel is Emu. It's still in silhouette. And it's this whole, Rox is like, yeah, we're up against the world. You're up against literally the thing that is the epitome of the world government right now. And that is a emu-possessed Saint Saturn. Not Goomko. He didn't possess Goomko. So we still don't know the whole logic there for, like, what can he and can he possess, is what emu can and can't possess, different things like that. But he's possessing Saturn at the very least at the moment. This may just end up being that he can pick who he wants to turn, who he wishes to possess out of the Gorosei or out of the Gods Knights at whim. It may not necessarily have to be Goomko or a specific one. It's just like, I can possess any of you at whim if I wish. And he's, they're doing that here. Because we saw the Domi Reversi technique get used earlier on the Davy Clan members, unfortunately, so there's that. So it does say break next week, but this was also supposed to be the chapter that was supposed to come out last week, so we may not get a break this week, so I'm not sure about that at the moment. Either way, next week is when the new Pokemon Legends ZA comes out, so I'll hopefully be able to play that. We'll see what happens. And then the week after that is my niece's wedding, and I get to have so much fun with helping get all that figured up, and those land on, might be days where the chapter comes out, so we'll see what's going on with that for getting the review out. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!